So what we're going to do is we're going to do all the problems 23 through 32. So get a little practice using your calculator. And so what they do is they basically give 3 examples of things to use your calculator for. And then they ask you a question. So in problem 23, we take a negative number and divide by a negative number. And the rule is that a negative number divided by a negative number is a positive number. So if the numbers have the same sign, whether you multiply or divide them together, you end up with a positive number. If the signs are opposite, then you end up with a negative number. And I remember reading this commentary about how sometimes that's not a good explanation, but anyway, that'll do. So if you do this on your calculator, what you find out is that all of those result in a positive number, and therefore dividing a negative number by another negative number results in a positive product. Sometimes, to answer a general question, you do a specific example, and especially if you use a calculator, because it's always going to give you an answer that's appropriate. Okay, number 24, multiplying a negative number by a positive number gives a negative product. And it doesn't matter whether the first number is negative or the second number is negative, just if the signs are different. And let's say, as an example, if you had 5 times negative 4 times negative 4, it's going to be a positive number, a negative number. Well, if you have an even number of negative numbers, then you're going to have a positive result, because each negative number is going to pair up with another negative number, and that's going to result in a positive number. So in this case, it's going to be positive. It'll be positive 80. But let's say you had 5 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. It doesn't have to be the same number. Let me just change that so you don't think it has to be the same number. If you have an odd number of negative numbers, then when every one that pairs up will give a positive number, but there'll always be one that's left over. And that one left over will be a negative, and so you'll end up with all the pairs make positives and the single one makes a negative. And so this is going to be a negative result. And then you can just multiply the numbers together. So 5 times 2 is 10, times 2 is 20, times 3 is 60. So you get negative 60. So that's the deal when you have more than one example, more than one negative number, more than 2 negative numbers. Raising a non-zero number to the power of 0 results in 1. So this is one of the properties of exponents. Any number a to the 0 power is 1. So 1 to the 0 power is 1. 10 to the 0 power is 1. 100 to the 0 power is 1. So anything raised to the 0 power is 1. And if you think of any number raised to the first power is just the base. So in this case, because you're only just multiplying. Something multiplied by, not even multiplied, it's just the number by itself. So, okay, number 26, 1 raised to any power. If you try those out on your calculator, you'll see that you get a result of 1. So 1 raised to any power, say A is any power. Whether it's positive or negative, it's going to be equal to 1. So 1 to the 27.6 power is equal to 1. Doesn't matter. The sign of the reciprocal of a product is the same as the sign of the number. Sign of the reciprocal of a number is, so what is a reciprocal? A reciprocal is, say, if you have, let's see, this is 27. If you have a number A, the reciprocal is just 1 divided by that number. So if you have the number 3, the reciprocal of 3 is 1 divided by that number. If you have 1/3, That's 1 divided by 1/3, which is just equal to 1, which is you take the reciprocal of this 1/3, which is 3. And actually, that's kind of, you change the numerator to the denominator to the numerator. So the reciprocal of 1/3 is 3. So you take a fraction less than 1 between 0 and 1 becomes a number greater than 1. If you have a number greater than 1, it becomes a fraction between 0 and 1. Now if you have a negative sign, -3, it gives -1/3. So the negative sign carries through when you talk about reciprocals. Okay, number 28. 5 divided by 0, 9 divided by 0, and 0 divided by 0. Dividing number by 0 gives it actually gives an error message. On my calculator, 2 divided by 0, it says error, divide by 0. And because anytime you divide any number by 0, even 0 divided by 0 is, well, any number divided by 0 is undefined. So if you took a number 3 divided by 0, the result is not infinity, but it's really undefined. If you take 0 divided by 0, that's what's actually called indeterminate. Indeterminate. So we're not really sure. The calculator still says it's an error. But there are things called undefined when you divide by 0. It is kind of like going to infinity. If you take a number and divide it by, say as this approaches 0, you'd have 3 divided by a very small number, which would mean it's like 3 times a very large number, and it gets to a large number. As the number approaches 0, this number gets larger and larger and larger, and when it equals 0, it doesn't have a value, which is infinity, and infinity is not a value. It's what we approach when a number gets very big. Now 0 divided by 0, if you had 1 divided by 1, you'd say it's 1, but 0 divided by 0 is not equal to 1. It all depends upon how you get to that 0. That's not really something that we can talk about in this class. Okay, 29, 0 divided by a number. Any number divided by 0, or 0 divided by any number, is still 0. You have 0 things and you break it up into 100 parts, you still have 0. So any number 0 divided by any number is 0. And it doesn't matter whether it's positive or negative. So if you have 0 divided by -5, it's still 0. Taking the square root of a negative number gives, so if you take the square root of -4, you don't get -2, you don't get that, you get an error message. Let's see what mine says exactly in my calculator. Square root of -4, it says non-real answer. So non-real. What's the book say? It just says error message. So it does say error. And this is something that you actually probably get to, we don't talk about in this math class, but just for your information, we define a quantity I to be equal to the square root of -1. That's an imaginary number. So if you took the square root of -4, the answer would be 2I. And that's dealing with real and imaginary numbers. So that's how you deal with it. But a calculator only deals with real numbers, so it says error. Multiplying an odd number of negative numbers gives a negative product. Well, we already talked about that, about matching those up. So again, if we have -3 times -3 times -3, these two multiply together give a positive number, and there's always 1 left over. So say if you had -3 times -3 times -3 times -3 times -3, this is odd. These two multiply together give a positive number. These two multiply together. And you keep doing that until you get back, because it's odd, you have 1 left over. And so you have positive times positive times negative, and so that gives you a negative. And the last one is multiplying an even number of negative numbers together. So if you have -3 times -3 times -3 times -3, sometimes you use parentheses just to emphasize the fact that we're multiplying these things together. Each pair is going to give us a positive number. In this case, +9. Here we get a positive number, +9. And so we have positive numbers, two positive numbers multiplied together give us a positive number. So if this is an even number, which there are 4 of them, you get a positive number. Here we have 5, and here we have 3, and because of that we get negative numbers in the result. Okay, so that's that. That's your calculator experiment.